Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. The UIAAA would not be able to broadcast this podcast without the support of our business partners. Thank you to all of the gold and silver business partners of the UIAAA, BSN Sports, and our contact, Jeremy Macy. Final Forms, AMP, with contacts Julie Renner and Clay Burnett. Granite Canyon Wealth and our contact, Megan Palazzo. Jostens and our contact, Molly Shaheen. NCSA, Next College Student Athlete, and our contact, Paul Putnam. VNN Varsity News Network and our contact, Jason Jones. Thanks again to all of the gold and silver UIAAA business partners.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. This is Mark Hutch-Hunter, your host. Today we're glad to have our guest, Dr. Everett Kelepolo, CMAA, District Athletic Director at the Nebo School District. Everett, welcome. How are you today?
Doing great, Hutch. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's so good to see your smiling face. And once again, hopefully when our conference starts here in a couple of weeks, everybody's going to be able to come down and see each other and get out again. So that'll be awesome. So let's get right to it, Everett. Let's have you share with our listeners for a few minutes where you grew up, where you went to college, where you went to high school, maybe your participation in youth sports, that type of a thing.
Yeah, I was born in Wahiawa, Hawaii. My dad was in the Marine Corps at that time.
Okay, so you can say that. So say that again.
Wahiawa, Hawaii.
And which island?
So that's on Oahu.
Okay, and it's near. Give me something it's near to that I know.
You know, it's on the east side of the island. So I'm trying to think. Oh, by the plantations. It's just it's not too far from the pineapple plantation.
So if you take not the back way, but there's two ways to get to the North Shore. One's through the tunnels and up, and the other way's through the plantations to get up there. So that's where you grew up. Okay,
that's the place. As a matter of fact, I mean, I hadn't been back there since I was 2 years old. My brother took me back to Oahu at one time, but to Wahiawa, I didn't. I took my family back probably a couple of years ago, so it was neat. Even saw the hospital I was born in. It's a pink hospital, like Pepto-Bismol hospital, but it was my kids weren't all that impressed with it. But yeah, that's
kids
where
never are.
But yeah, that's probably true too. But I was born there again. Dad was in the Marine Corps, so we were between Hawaii and California, and he was born on the Big Island in Hilo.
Okay.
Then when I was born, I was number 6 of 10. So by that time, they had gone quite a few places and that type of thing. But by the time, I think it was, then when we moved to California, we were in Barstow and Oceanside. And then when I was about 8 years old, we moved to where my mom grew up, which was in Greer, Arizona. And that's where I attended high school. I had been a part of, middle school and high school opportunities there in a place called Round Valley. Eager, Arizona is where Round Valley High School's at. But we always, it's the one place, like where they have, I think it's the only it is, what am I saying? It is the only high school that has a dome there. And our claim to fame is that Mark Gastineau went to school there. And my brother actually got in a fight with him. And I think they just pushed each other into the lockers, and that was about it. But that's his claim to fame.
There was no winner then, or you're listening to your brother. He says that he won. So Greer is next.
At least that's what he'll say.
Exactly. What bigger town in Arizona is it closest to?
You know what? There are a lot of small towns there. So this is on the east side. There's St. John's that's above, Show Low, Pine Top, all that area.
Show Low, okay.
Yeah, you might have heard of Show Low. Show Low is a little bit bigger town, but we were probably about 4 hours away from the Phoenix area. And so it was just, if you left from Phoenix, you would just go northeast. And we were 3 hours from Flagstaff. So if you look at the state, it's right in between on the east side.
So you would go up to Flagstaff and then either the old Route 66 or I-40 East, and then from there you would get there.
Oh yeah, so yeah, you know that area, yeah. So like ours would be, so ours is again right in between. You would actually go through Globe and and all those other smaller towns and that type of, just a bunch of small towns. But that's where my mom grew up, and it was a great place. But the school itself, Round Valley, we had a lot of success in sports. I participated in football, wrestling, and track. I was definitely one of those late bloomers, but really had a great time, and as things went on. Then I was on a service mission. I was in Louisiana, and so that was about the time where Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and so that's when I became an Alabama fan. So we were always told that, says, you'll find that Bear Bryant was obviously very popular now.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think they need to put Nick Saban right next to him. So it'll be interesting to see what they choose to do. You get some of the diehards a little bit tough. But then I got recruited to play football at Eastern Arizona Junior College. That's the home of the Gila Monster. And we were, we were known as the Gila Monsters. We always said we could bite your toe off, and that's about as tough as we could be.
And what town is that in, Eastern Arizona?
That's in Thatcher. So that's
okay.
That was directly south of where I grew up, about by 4 hours. So it goes Phoenix, and then Thatcher was way over to the east side of the state.
Okay.
So it was, but hotter than you can imagine. I mean, it was.
I'm sure.
Oh, extremely hot. And then then I got recruited up to Southern Utah University. As a matter of fact, the coach that coached me, his name was Don Conrad. He was the former coach of Southern Utah, and so he talked to Jack Bishop, and Jack's son is Ryan Bishop. Ryan,
sure.
Ryan is the vice principal over at Wasatch. So
sure.
So we have some connections as far as that's concerned. Yeah. So then I went to Southern Utah. Member of that football team, had a great time, met a lot of great friends, and obviously most people know who Rich Barton is, and that's where I met Rich. Rich was playing basketball, and I was playing football at the time.
And so this would have been
this was from about 87 through 91, and I broke my ankle actually the first year that I got there, then recovered, come back and began and started playing again. So I got a hardship year that particular year. And then as far as my education, got my bachelor's degree in physical education at Southern Utah University. I wasn't even planning to go into education. I was planning to go in a whole different route into the business side of it and make billions of dollars.
Make some money, sure.
Make some huge money. And had some different experiences that led me kind of this way as far as education. So I really have, I'm glad that's the place it took me. But then I got my master's in educational leadership from BYU. And then my doctorate, finished my doctorate back in 2011 in educational leadership at UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So that's kind of at least at this first point. And then my first job that I started with was actually at Lehigh High School. And
at Lehigh with Lou Andrus. So Lou would have been not the coach then, but the AD then.
Absolutely. Yeah. He was one that, and so I met Lou first, and I got to know him, and many might know Jeff Kiltz too. Jeff Kiltz has been part of the organization for quite a few years. And so he was the head coach at the time. So he hired me and brought me on, and really just had a great experience up there. Then left there, went down to, came down here to Spanish Fork and coached with Doug Snell down here, the football. We did football, wrestling, and track at that time.
Which kept 3-sport coaching. That keeps you pretty busy.
Yeah,
you might as well be the AD if you're going to be that busy.
well, I was single at the time, so it was a lot easier to do all 3 sports too. But now it'd be a little more difficult. But yeah, I mean, at the time, I could dedicate myself to all the time it took just to get it done.
All right. So I want you to mention some of the mentors maybe you had along the way. Early days of coaching, maybe once you got involved with the UIAAA, or even when you were younger, coaches that helped you along the way.
Yeah, I think back, it's interesting. I remember being in 6th grade. That I share this story because I'm thankful that I did have success later on, but that just shows you how I was I was definitely a late bloomer. I think I was in 6th grade, and we had I was playing on a basketball team. Of course, I'm not built to be a basketball player, but I was on the basketball team, and we normally had about 7 players that came, and I didn't get a whole lot of playing time. But one night, only 5 people showed up. and the coach played 4, and I was one that sat on the bench, and he just played 4 on the court.
That's a big confidence builder, isn't it? Okay,
Well, it was,
okay, we've only got 5 guys, but you're on the bench.
Well, what's interesting is that, like I says, I now look back at it and it says I didn't disagree with him. At the time, of course, I didn't know. I thought maybe you could play with 4 players, but I was just horrible. And anyways, going through that process, I've shared that experience quite a few times with people, and they just keep saying, "Says, oh, that was a horrible coach." I said, actually, no. I think what he did probably was to help the team survive and to do well. But the other thing too is it really taught me. It says I better figure out what I really want to do. So it helped me, I think, later on as far as life was concerned. I began to understand how things work. I think it probably made me a little more sensitive to when I began coaching too. So anyways, it was actually a great highlight experience as far as that's concerned. So that coach was one of the first ones that you look back and say, okay, I don't think I would ever do that to anybody else, but at the same time, I think it was a good experience for me to go through. But during high school, I had some great coaches. I had people like Todd Workman, who was just a phenomenal influence on me. And so he actually became he was the athletic director, the vice principal, and our head football coach, because that was a small enough town. That's what he did a lot of responsibilities, but he would eventually go down to Queen Creek High School down in Gilbert, and had phenomenal success down there too. But he was the type of guy that he was intense, he was powerful, he got the best out of us. And there were times during practice, I think we all hated him during practice, but by the end of practice, he had this great ability to inspire us and just take us to the next level. And I have appreciated, and I find that I coach a lot, not necessarily at his level, but I begin to understand how important it was to make sure that you always build people up. And then he was a phenomenal one to do that. And then Shelby Ray was my wrestling coach. We won quite a few state championships there too. Mm-hmm. And he was, again, he had a quiet intensity about him, but it really helped me to have different types of coaches who had that type of influence. I mean, but they were extremely inspirational, and they really had helped me through that. Probably, being a late bloomer and then coming into my own by the time I got to high school, that really helped me out.
And so obviously talk about the big mentor who's probably I didn't go to SUU, but there's a person down there I'm sure that had an influence on your life that's probably had an influence on hundreds of coaches here.
Oh yeah, and that's Dr. Steve. I'm glad you brought that up, because I did have him written down too, and Richard Barton brings him up quite a few times in some of his presentations. And I'll tell you, Dr. Lunt, when I first got to Southern Utah, he asked if he could meet with me, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'll be glad to." And he said, "Well, I'm over physical education. If you ever have an interest, I know you're in athletics right now. You might have an interest in it." "Oh no, I'm going to the business side. I'll be making a lot of money and so forth." And so I had that conversation with him, and it was probably about 2 years later that I entered his office. And because when I came up to Lehigh, I had this experience of working with these kids and thinking, this is really a great opportunity for me. I really enjoy this. So it was Dr. Lunt was the first one I went back to, and I said, I think I'm going to change my major. And I don't know if he saw it in us or whatever it was, but he just had this ability to, and he's kept in contact with us for all these years too. And so even before he died, he was still, I spoke to him about a book that he had written, and but extremely, extremely influential. But I think it's probably because he kept that connection with us. He knew how important that was. I mean, here we are as adults, and we still talk about a man who was important in our lives, and helped us and guided us through a lot of things that we've accomplished.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. So I want to ask you a question, because you've had a little bit of different experience than a lot of the members of our association, because you've been a middle school principal. You've been an AD, district athletic administrator, not once, but twice. And then you've actually been a principal of a high school, all while you've been a member of the UIAAA and the NIAAA. So speak to that and how that's maybe changed your outlook on things.
Well, and I think it's like anything else, the more experience you get and the more opportunities and levels you get to administrate on, the more you begin to understand the bigger picture. And I'm the guy who has to figure out the bigger picture most of the time. But I I think what was nice about going out and becoming a principal, I understood the importance of athletics, like within a school or activities, just activities in general. And so with our athletic directors, I knew that we were going to, and like I said, we had a great one over there at Springville, Mark Binks, and like I said, he just did a phenomenal job. But I wanted to make sure that he had other assistants to help him to accomplish a lot of those things too, because he's definitely one who works extremely, extremely hard. But it gave me a perspective, because as a principal, and you can ask any principal today, they'll tell you 70, 80% of the things that they deal with is still with athletics. Like I says, they would like to tell you that there was that people are upset because of the chemistry teacher or the science teacher or
Sure.
the English teacher. But truth of the matter is, there is a lot to do with athletics, because some feel very strongly about it. And that's why I think it's so important to make sure that we're sharing that message of it's beyond athletics. It's about developing young people. It's about, like I said, 20, 30, 40 years from now that they can come back and look back at the experiences they had, and it helps them to go through a very difficult time in their life. So that's why I've always looked at athletics as a vehicle, as an opportunity. So, and it's helped me to see that over and over again, even as an administrator, because as an administrator, that's my hope, is that these kids understand the 6 C's of education and really try to get to the next level. But I think most of our kids don't know how to deal with really difficult things. But when I look at athletes, they've dealt with wins, they've dealt with losses, they've dealt with heartaches and that type of thing. They've dealt with joys. And so I find that athletes tend to be, and if they take their academics serious, they become some of the most successful people that are around us. And so I think that perspective of being all these different levels of different opportunities of service and leadership have helped me out.
Well, I would like to clone you, because, and of course, I had multiple principals all those years I was at Jordan, and they were all good to me. But there's so many principals out there that don't understand that a good athletic director is worth their weight in gold. And they keep your name out of the paper, to keep you out of the phone calls, that they take care of all that stuff. It just makes your life so much easier. If I could get that message to the rest of the principals, because I've spoke to an athletic director the other day that said, I'm trying to talk to my principal about this and this, and he just doesn't get it. Well, he came from a middle school, which is not necessarily bad, but he's come straight from a middle school. He has no idea what it's like. He has no idea who the UHSAA is. He doesn't know who the UIAAA is. An athletic director is, well, sure, whatever. They don't understand. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. The power of an AD within a school. See that, and that's what helped me out, because like I says, I knew that even though 60, 70% of 80% of the time is usually spent that way, but you get a great AD and get the additional help, you find that, like I said, it mitigates so many things. And you're right. And like I said, when they see that people are trying hard to work for their kids and to have them make sure they have a great experience, that is a big deal. You're exactly right.
Okay, so let's talk about now your journey with the UIAAA, how you got involved there, and then obviously your journey with the NIAAA, because you've had some great experiences on the national level as well.
Yeah, I was first introduced. I think the first meeting that I ever was a part of was probably about 2008. I think it was Doug Snell who, when I coached with him down at Spanish Fork High School, and then when I got into this job back in 2007, we were having a meeting, and he says, "Hey, you guys got to make sure you go to the UIAAA." And I thought I'd heard about it before, but I didn't really know enough about the UIAAA at that time. And I thought, okay, well, we'll go down, and it'll be down St. George. It'll be a nice vacation time to really kind of see see the warmth and all. I said, oh, that's a great time to go down there because it's really warm, and maybe go golfing and that type of thing. But I recognized real quick, and you were powerful then. You obviously you've been a mentor to many of us through this process. But I remember how serious you took. And you had everything was organized there when people signed up. I mean, it was just this was back in the old Holiday Inn.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that was, and it was a smaller operation, that type of thing. But I could see that people were going, I mean, people were taking the classes serious. They were going to the presentations and taking it serious. It wasn't one of those things that everybody went out to golf or anything like that. I mean, there was a time for that, but it was extremely serious. And obviously I compliment you because of like the atmosphere you created there, the culture. And that was my first experience. And I thought I was totally impressed because it was fun for me to see the professional development that was going on, but the networking, I mean, those things that were just so powerful within an organization. So I was, anyways, that was my first part of that. But the PD, the networking, the professionalism of everybody was just phenomenal. And it really kind of sparked. I mean, I remember feeling inspired. By the time I left, I thought this is a great organization, and I've been a part of a lot of organizations, so that was really a lot of fun. But yeah, I've been a member of the Utah, the athletic director executive committee. I'm the 5A, 6A rep. Now I can't remember how long I've been doing that, but it's been quite some time, and I don't fully recall. Then I was chair of one of what the UIAAA on the emphasis on the strategic planning commission or strategic planning committee. So I had that opportunity, and that was really enjoyable. And then with my experiences in the UIAAA, that really helped me to understand, because I think it was probably a year later that I went to the nationals and I saw that level, and that was just intriguing, interesting, and powerful for me to be a part of that too. But yeah, so since I've been on I think when were we on the fifth strategic? Was that back in 2016?
We were the fourth strategic plan, and our final meeting was in National Harbor in 2014.
Okay, so it was 2000.
So we had met in October of that year, and then finishing everything up in the 2014 conference there in National Harbor. And that great memory, because you were the only, because they don't, I was one of the committee chairs of operations. So they put us on there. They put what state we're from, but we're really considered national people at that. And so there's only one from each section. So there was only 8 people on the operations, 8 people on the programs, 8 people on the finance. You were one of the 8 people on the operations. And I still look back on those times. They were great times.
Yeah, but just to see that those inner workings of being a part of that committee is that you were chairing them. Like I said, that was just a great experience for me. And like I said, it's really taught me, how, being intricate, making sure that you're detailed and getting things done, and how powerful the organization itself is as far as the UIAAA is concerned. But yeah, I've been part of the awards committee. I think I got on the awards committee back in probably a year after that, so about 2015, and was a member for a couple of years. Then I became a vice chair for a couple of years, and this year I'm, as of January 1st, I am now the chair of that particular committee. As a matter of fact, Phil just sent me something so I can get my blazer. Hopefully I got the right size. So
absolutely, because you're one of the blue blazers now, and now you're one of them that, when all those years ago when you went to your first conference, you went, oh, look at those guys, and now you're one of those guys.
It's interesting you say that, because that is true. I mean, like I says, you look, I says, well, what do those guys do? And I mean, like I says, you see them heavily involved, and that's what I love about UIAAA and IAAA is the involvement. I know you won't allow us to let grass grow under our feet at all, because like you're going to get us involved, and but that's what's beautiful about the UIAAA, because it only functions as well as its people, and like when people are willing to get involved, it is a big deal. But I'm looking forward to this next year as far as with being chair of the awards committee too.
Well, and so speak to that, because I have a soft spot in my heart for the awards committee. As you know, I was chair for, and they don't do this anymore, but I was chair for 5 years back in the 2000s. Wow.
Well, actually, I didn't know that. I don't know it's 5 years.
The reason I was chair, because Joni Pabst was one of my vice chairs, and so all of a sudden she becomes the president, and so the rotation off is put off a year, because Bobby Rossi is one of my other vice chairs, and he's going to run for the at-large. And then, of course, Mark Armstrong and Andy Childs, who both became presidents, were vice chairs of mine. And of course, then Big Rich was a vice chair when he ran and won his at-large the second time we were in National Harbor. And so
That's
or
that's a
no,
lot of
not the
his.
second time, the first time. Jamie won the second time we were in National Harbor. Rich
Oh,
won in two. The year that we were on the strategic plan was the year that Rich ran and won the at-large. And so I want you to talk for a minute, because you didn't get this opportunity this year, but that awards committee is really, I know they're really busy about this time, the April, May time, picking the awards winners and forwarding them to the board. But you've got the awards committee. You get to meet all the award winners, the Hall of Fame people. You've got flowers for them, all of that type of thing. Speak about how fun that is. One of the rewarding things of being on the awards committee.
Oh, that is extremely fun, because we've talked about this before. To recognize people who have dedicated so many years, and like I said, we're talking 30, 40. I'm sure there's been 50 years at some point, are people who've still stayed involved. But that has been great to recognize their great work. And like I said, so when we have the opportunity to sit down with them, we obviously do photo ops with them. We do president receptions with them, and then like I said, obviously at the luncheon and the dinner, we get to recognize their great accomplishments. But just sitting down, and as we meet with them, I mean, you can obviously feel the knowledge and the experience of all those folks that are there, and like I said, and what they've dedicated themselves to do, like just to make sure that kids, student athletes, have a great experience. And so I guess I can relate this to being the lineman. I often look at myself. I was a college lineman, and
Mm-hmm.
I had a football coach that once said, he says, your goal is not to get your name in the paper. And I really took that to heart, and we took it to heart as a group, because like I said, you kind of got kicked out of the club if your name got in the paper. So
Yeah.
it was fun. But I look at athletic directors. I mean, sometimes it's the unsung hero, because a lot of times you'll see the coach and obviously the players recognize, which it should be that way. But the athletic director is the one who's the unsung hero, who really, they put all that time and effort into it. And so recognizing these type of folks really is a joy. I mean, they're so gracious and grateful. I mean, just the people who are winning these awards. I mean, we're trying to recognize them, and they're making sure that we're taken care of, because, oh, you guys are working so hard. Thank you so much for doing these things. But they're just so gracious and so kind, but it's fun to recognize them that way. But yeah, I know this next year, when we
You'll
go to
have your
Denver,
hands full.
we're going to have our hands full, because now we have 2 years that we're going to combine in one. And so we'll have we'll double up on the citations, and we're going to have to figure out how we're going to double up on the the DSAs, the Kovalevskis,
And the Hall of Fame.
And the Hall of Fame. So it could be some long meetings, like, by the time we finish with that. So that has been a joy to be a part of, and is extremely rewarding.
Let me ask you this. Let's shift gears a little bit. What is one common myth about being an athletic director that you'd like to debunk?
Well, definitely it's we're not golfing 24/7. And if you've seen me golf, you'd know it's not worth it for me to golf anyways. But I'll tell you, it's a hard job. I think anybody who goes into this, I mean, realizes if they didn't get it before, they will definitely get it once they get into it. But it's still rewarding. I mean, every athletic director I've spoken with, they love their jobs. And they just realize it. I mean, it's like my job right now. When I was asked to come back as the district athletic director, I said, "Oh, absolutely, yeah, I'll do that." It's really that type of level. And so when the myth, whatever the myth may be out there, is like thinking that we're just going and all we do is watch the games. I mean, the best thing to do is to follow an athletic director and watch what they do throughout the whole process, because they're not the ones that over there enjoying the game.
Exactly.
They're the ones, as administrators, we're trying to help control the crowd. They're out there making sure that all the cones are up. They're making sure that the chairs are set up. They're making sure that the speakers are working, and all the systems are in place. So they don't really get enjoyed as much. But I think the joy that they feel is they really get to know the kids. I mean, obviously the kids can appreciate what they're really doing. They have the opportunity to mentor a lot of kids, and so the athletic directors are just phenomenal. And if people were to see what they do on a daily basis, I think they'd be blown away.
Absolutely. And so speaking about the kids, that brings me to my next question, because kids is usually the answer to it, but and I'm sure it would be for you still, but you're a district athletic administrator, so you can be around the kids if you visit a game here or there at the schools in the Nebo district. So what's the favorite part of your job as a district AD? Because it's probably going to be different than a high school AD that's in the building, because they get to be around the kids all the time.
Yeah, I think my hope, whatever level you're at, is hoping that you're able to, like I says, just knowing you're creating policies and protocol that's helping these athletes continue to play. So, for instance, we're dealing with that right now with COVID. Our main mission is to make sure that kids still get the opportunity to play. I mean, that's why we're
Mhm.
doing the testing. That's where like I says, taking the precautions that we're doing and make sure policies are in place. So yeah, you're right. I mean, so when I walk out my door, there's not a bunch of kids, clamoring and wondering what's happening next, that type of thing. So mine is probably more going back out to the schools, but I think also the intrinsic piece is knowing that I'm really helping make their lives a little bit better, making sure that the coaches are having a better life because, like this is just because of policies or things that we actually are fighting for them, whether it's their facilities or
Mhm.
working towards greater stipends, whatever it may be. But that's my hope, is that we make it an enjoyable process for everybody involved.
Okay, so now that you're a seasoned veteran, and if you had two items that you could share with a brand new athletic director, I'm saying a brand new athletic director is somewhere between 1 and 4 years. What two things would you say you absolutely have to do, these two things that will help you so much as you start your job as an AD?
I think number one, you've got to get involved in the UIAAA and the NIAAA. I would, if I ever saw, and like if I was principal of a high school, I would say you're going to get involved. You start working towards your CAA, CMAA, learn ins and outs, and like and use it because of the networking piece of it. I feel so confident that I can call anybody in this state and many national licenses, other states, and ask them how they problem solve or what they're dealing with, and how do they handle this? What are you doing through the COVID crisis? Which, by the way, I've done a few times too.
Yeah.
But I would probably all have, and that's the one thing is I says get involved, because you'll find out your networking is so important, and like I says you don't feel like you're an island. You have that opportunity. The other one is what the UIAAA and NIAAA really endorse, and license, which I think is phenomenal, which is the professional development. A lot of times, most of us will go to someone like Dr. Green to his legal classes, and we all start to pull our hair out because we think of all the things that could go wrong at our school. But what it's doing for us is really making us aware. So we're creating better policies, better protocol when we're working with our kids. But so I'd say those two things really: get involved and develop your networking piece, and continue to professional develop. And like I said, that's one of those things where I've watched too many people in too many professions. I says we've hit the top, we're good, we're finished. This is all we have to do. And people who stop learning, like I says again, I think they stop progressing too. So I think those two things really would make a difference.
Thanks for sharing those. So think for a moment, as a follow-up to that question, think for a moment, it's 2005, 2006. You just think of the amount of to follow up with what you said, the amount of networking that you have now in your job, and compare it back to the first 2 months when you were an AD. It's like night and day.
You're exactly right. There is, it's such a change, because like I says, like I says, obviously as a brand new athletic director or district athletic director going into it, I'm shy. I don't know. I mean, I know a few people here and there, but I don't really know many people. So you kind of go through that first year or so just trying to, you kind of just trip through things as much as you can. Now it's, man, if I'm tripping at this point, I says I'm not doing my job, because I says I know that I can call multiple people and try to figure out how to problem solve that way. But you're exactly right. It is just night and day from what it is here in 2021 in comparison to when I first started out. It's a big deal. So that's why I'm hoping, like, so you see those new administrators, and hopefully they take those new athletic directors, and if they take that opportunity to get to be involved, those things at least are taken care of.
Well, I would just give kudos to the Nebo district, obviously you as the district because the Nebo district's one of the model districts as far as I'm concerned
Well, that's
about
very
getting their
kind.
ADs involved, participating in the state conference, that type of thing. So that's great. Let's finish up with this question then that I conveniently borrowed from another interviewer. What question should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I don't know that I thought about that quite a bit. And I said, you're really thorough through this. So I said, I'm not sure that you missed anything that I would have thought of anyways. But yeah, from a personal standpoint, I love the organization. I love the professionalism of it. I love that we're doing great things for people, no, for our own people, but mainly for the kids, and that they have great experiences. And we're doing the best we can to make sure that they have a great and bright future with us too.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. Our guest today has been Dr. Everett Kelepolo, CMAA District Athletic Administrator for the Nebo District, and as well as the national chair of the NIAAA Awards Committee. Everett, thanks so much again for being with us today. And to our listeners, we hope to see you again next Friday. Thanks, Everett.
Thanks, Touch. Appreciate it.